Just so you all understand, the very first point I want to make before we get into it is that ChatGPT is not the only game in town. It hasn't been the only game. It continues to not be the only game. And by ChatGPT, I mean GPT-3 and 4. I am eternally grateful that someone leaked Meta's Llama earlier this year, which set off, and then there's some other open source models too, but it set off the explosion of open source models, which is a good thing. But there have been plenty of them over the years. GPT-2 was really one of the better ones early on. So when I talk about language models, I mean, like, I'm talking about all of them. This is interesting. This is a cool hack. This is from a paper recently came out. And when you had a model do reinforcement learning by making it play a game, it exhibits more creativity. So in this case, in this paper, it discovered new ways to categorize information on its own. The key thing is here. We formulated the task of finding a better sorting routine as a single player game. We then trained a new deep reinforcement learning agent, AlphaDev, to play the game. And then AlphaDev discovered small sorting algorithms from scratch that outperformed previously known human benchmarks. To make this simple, basically, if you make a model play a game with points and scores and all that stuff and, puzzles, so far, when they do this across the board, those models, in whatever task you give it, outperforms what it used to do. If you bring this to ChatGPT, now obviously you don't train GPT-4 or 3.5, but if you make ChatGPT play a game, if you make whatever it is you want it to do, if you make it into a game, literally you talk to ChatGPT and say like, hey, we're going to play a game. The game is called blah, blah, blah. And you get points for this and you get points taken off for that. But if you do that with writing ads, emails, whatever, any copy, and you make it a game and instruct it to play a game, it'll do better in the output. It'll give you better output than if you just gave it simple instructions. Does that make sense to everyone? And you can even say to ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, I want to play a game today. It's the outcome is, I want 50 Facebook ads and turn this into a game. Give me suggestions of what the game should be. And then ChatGPT will give you suggestions. Make sense to everyone? I did this a while ago where I asked for headline and subheadline combinations. And I told ChatGPT, you're going to score yourself on a between 1 and 10 for how ridiculous your headlines are. But here's the one rule. You can never give yourself a perfect score. And the goal of this game is to get a perfect score. I hit enter. And before it crashed, like it timed out on me, it generated like some 40 headline, subheadline combinations, unique and different headline combinations. It just kept on repeating subheadline and headline combinations over and over again, giving itself scores, but it could never win by getting a 10 out of 10. So it just kept going until it crashed. I just find it fun. Maybe I'm the only one, right? Like I just find it funny. One of the many points I hope to make today is stop thinking about ChatGPT as a chat bot. My God, chatbots suck. Like when they came out, chatbots used to be a thing in 2016, like for a while they were the thing and people are into it and they just didn't, it didn't go anywhere really because they weren't good enough. This is kind of fun. So change the word tweet and tweets to whatever format you're looking for. Facebook post, like this structure works for any kind of format. In this, I just give it instructions. I say, follow these rules. And then I scraped a Reddit thread, comments from a Reddit thread. This is just for fun. But I scraped it on like what ruins a hamburger or what instantly ruins a burger. And then people responded with all kinds of stuff. And I thought, like, why not turn this into tweets? So I did. Like, here's the thing. You hit enter, and then it goes, beware the burger saboteurs. There are those who dare to squeeze the life out of our beloved patties with their spatulas, dooming us to a meal of overcooked desolation. Hooks, the burger saboteurs among us. Overzealous spatula wielders. And so these are just tweets with different hooks that I can use in the first line, right? The height of a burger should never outpace its deliciousness. And so what it does is that it's using all these comments as fodder and as raw material to then turn it into whatever text. There's a slippery intruder ruining your burger experience. What the heck is that? Tomatoes. Thick, slimy slices of tomato. I crack myself up. That's mainly why we're having these office hours, just for me to have a laugh. So again, change the word tweets and Twitter, change it out to anything else. This could be done for ads. You can ask for 20 different and unique whatever. I'm just giving it instructions that I'm telling in, and I gave it a random avatar. We can, Barb. We can compare contrast. I get into that. And I just gave it rules. Do this, don't do that. And then feed it. So if you go to Reddit and you grab comments, there's exportcomments.com maybe. So there are tools that can scrape these for you. You go to Reddit, any forum or subreddit, I think they're called, grab text from that, use it as raw material for whatever you want. The creativity can be endless. Just think of funny things. Make sense to everyone? Now, if you're using a tool like Poe, so here's the thing. I said this before in different places. I use or access these models with API. You don't have to do that, but you do have fewer restrictions if you do. There are tools that allow you to do that, where you can input your OpenAI API keys, and so you have access that way. But Poe, I subscribe to it because they have Claude 100K, which is 100,000 token window. There's also the net.dev. For like $5, you can compare a ton of models. So there's Claude here. There's Alpaca. Llama is pretty decent still. GPT, and then GPT-4. And then you compare. Now, some of these don't have the same size context window. So what I recommend is that you pay the $5, because it's to cover the cost of API calls. Pay the $5 and then put in a prompt, and then it'll compare them. Now, again, like I said, some of these don't have the same context window size. Because they don't have the same context size window, I'm not going to do the full text because we'll get errors, but paste your prompt. We'll see if it does it. We'll see how many of these do it. But this is just a very quick and easy way. I think Llama's going to have issues, which is fine. But right here, Claude 3.54. The code probably not going to do it. I just did it to like illustrate. Very cost-effective way to compare. And so what I'll do all the time is just put in the same prompt and then get the output. GPT-4 is giving me emojis, even though I said don't include them, right? Like sometimes they're just cool. I'm going to tackle questions one by one, basically, but first one here. One of the things I talked more about analyzing and categorizing the survey results. I recently started to do it, but I found the results were granular, blah, blah, blah. It also had other issues. Like I asked it to not paraphrase survey responses. Yeah, and it worked once, but I couldn't do it again. If there's too much data, it just cut off. Exactly that. Bard tried it instead of ChatGPT. I get that, but so it depends. If you have ChatGPT Plus, then you have GPT-4, which has a larger context window. So what I'll say here is, I wouldn't use Bard for categorizing necessarily. I primarily use Bard to write and rewrite. GPT-4 is still better at detecting text and understanding text and sentiment in text. But what you're describing here is probably solved in ChatGPT Plus. You don't run into the same issues. And this happens all the time, but as I'll show, where is it? Here, I will say, do not change the text. Here, include examples from the text without any edits or changes to the language, words, grammar, or intent. So you have to be specific. And I know whoever asked this said that they did, but you probably have to like make a list of rules in the same way that these rules exist. Make a list. Follow these rules when analyzing the text, and then you list out the rules that you want it to follow, right? So do that, make the list of rules. One being, do not change the wording, grammar, words, grammar, language, or intent. And Bard, I don't really use to understand text, is not as good. I find that if I use Bard, I usually have to prompt it a couple of times before I get it to do what I'm trying it to do. If it's something like that, it's much better at rewriting or writing. Make sense to everyone? We're getting some Q&A. Let's see. Some questions. Leon asks, I might share them in the course, maybe, but they're going to be public on the video replay anyway. Leandro asks, I'm setting up an AI machine for my company based on Hugging Face. The goal is to use it as a general assistant to perform tasks like create marketing copy, emails, support emails, etc. Falcon, for open source models, Falcon 7B or 40B. And data points for the last part, how many records are registered from a database do I need? The more the better, but you need at least 300 data points. If you only have 300 data points, it won't be as good as if you had like 3,000 data points. Cool. So Falcon 7B or 40B for the open source. And then as many as you can, but at least 300 data points, unique, different data points. Leon asks, have you tested AI with writing voice by giving it or some article written post, etc.? Yeah. If you give it an example of a voice and tone and style that you wanted to imitate, you just say, I'm going to give you an example of a voice, tone, style, and diction that I want you to imitate or replicate. And then you give it a paragraph or two to illustrate what that looks like. And then say, you're going to form a personality based on this text. And then you hit enter, it'll tell you what the personality is. And then you say, now write me. And then you ask for whatever you wanted to write. So again, for this one, you got to be specific. Make a list of rules and label it as a list of rules. Do this, don't do that. And if you can pay the $20 a month for ChatGPT Plus, I suggest you do. It is probably the best money you can spend. I'll probably circle back to this question, how to prompt GPT to make it create new, innovative, unique, big ideas. I'll probably get to that later. But how are you creative as a human? You combine different ideas from different areas. Now, the good thing is with ChatGPT, you can ask and say, like, combine this idea with that idea, and then it'll give you an output. So it can help you be creative in that way. So instead of asking how to prompt GPT to make it create a new, innovative, unique, big ideas, we can get into that, but take a step back first and understand that if you don't know how you can be like that, how you can generate big ideas and be creative, and if you can't describe what that looks like to someone, then you're not going to have ChatGPT do it either. It's dependent on you giving it clear instructions. Make sense to everyone? And I'll circle back to this. I just want to hit some questions first. At this point, Bing Chat is better for research if I'm doing internet research, which, if we're all being honest, research up until now, before ChatGPT, was basically people using the internet and or books and databases. You can still do that. Now there are, I've shared these sites many times before. There's elicit.org, Consensus, and MirrorMind, and there's a ton of tools that are trained on scientific research with language models, so you can use those. But if I was to do a quick research, I'll start with Bing Chat because it's better tuned for search. Google Bard, I think, will get there, but they're not there yet. Bard now is better than Bard 2 months ago, but it's not quite Bing. Now, what I found myself doing a lot of is using ChatGPT plugins or the web browsing, mostly with plugins, because there are different plugins for different kind of research. And so there are some really good plugins. And I don't want to spend too much time with this, but I'm just saying, the research part is the easiest thing in the world at this point, because there are plugins that will combine internet search, like this one, Scholar AI, search 40 million peer-reviewed papers, blah, 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 blah. Install it, select it, and there you go. So I use a combination of all those. Does that make sense? How to remain relevant and effective as an SEO. I think SEO is going to fundamentally change, fundamentally. It might take a little bit before that happens. We're not talking tomorrow, but if I was an SEO today, I would look into the different language models that exist and figure out which ones are used for search and understand how they work. You don't have to be technical to understand how they work. It's easy to, you can find explanations that makes it easy for you to grasp. But I would start understanding how these language models work, because the way they work is how they'll also either be trained or fine-tuned for search, and that will determine how you then rank. I think Google moving forward will continue to use their search ranking signals that they've used for years and their algorithm, but I think it'll blend in with whatever language model like Bard that they use for Bard. And so I think it'll be a blend. I think it's not going to be enough to just understand SEO and know what ranks. You're going to have to understand language models, and especially like Bard, and understand how it works. Because you're going to, whatever content you create that you hope to rank, you're going to have to eventually start optimizing it for the robots, the real robots, not the web crawlers, but the real robots. If I was an SEO, I wouldn't panic at all because things move slowly, but I would start paying attention to what's going on because there's a lot going on. Mandy asks, I'm looking at creation of a sales page generated prompt to create based on a specific format. If it's complete to, so Mandy, the best approach to creating a prompt for a sales page. Now, if you're not using Claude 100K, and if you don't have API access and you're doing this through like the web interface, you're going to have to do it in parts because it's just not enough context window. You don't have enough of an input and output to get the sales page written and done. So the best way is for you to give it the template that you want to follow. And so if you say that there are 6 inputs for the client pages, does that mean that there are like 6 things you need to include or to map out in a template of sorts? Either way, the way to structure that prompt is to give it the page structure itself in like a bullet list. It won't be a bullet, it'll be like a dash and then the word. But the more you can explain the structure and what goes into each part of the structure, the better outcomes you'll have. Now, doing this with ChatGPT, like here, you're going to have to write a lot of these and you're going to have to do it in steps. So it would take a while, but break it down into, think of it this way. It's like you're going to give a brief or a description to a junior copywriter or a junior marketer. How would you describe what they should do so they understood it and then they could do it? And as always, you start off with the role you want ChatGPT to play. I wouldn't necessarily go straight to copywriter because you end up with a lot of tropes, but you can say things like you're an expert marketer who know how to craft messages that sells or that converts, that engages and helps people make a decision to buy. And so you give it the role that you want it to have and describe the language, describe the avatar and the offer, and then you break out the sales page into steps and explain it that way. Travis, live examples of how you're using agent GPTs like God mode. Live, I probably can't do because I don't use God mode or Cognosis or Baby AGI. I use my own custom developed. But either way, they all function more or less the same. I think God mode is the one I like the best, at least as of like 2 weeks ago when I tried it again 2 weeks ago, it did best. They all function very much the same way. You give it an outcome or an objective, and then it tells you the steps it's going to take and so on. Don't aim for the absolute end point of what you're trying to get done first. Think through, like if the outcome is, let's say 50 ads, just as an example, you don't say, I want you to write me 50 ads for blah, 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 blah. Instead, you go, what are the bigger picture milestones that need to happen for anyone to write 50 ads? Well, they need to understand the avatar, the offer. They should probably understand the best, like what kind of Facebook ads convert and so on. So if you break it down that way and then approach instructions to God mode, Agent GPT and Baby AGI and so on that way, where you don't aim for the very end yet, but instead go larger step by step by step by step, then you'll have a better outcome. Now I have custom developed code and I use, you can actually do that. You don't even need to do custom. You can actually string things. So you can do a poor man's AutoGPT, which is make.com or Zapier or Zapier, I never know. And you string together steps and API calls visually with make.com, or Pipe Dream is another one. So that together acts like an AutoGPT. Does that make sense, Travis? Now, I wish I could do live, but I don't use those tools, so I can't show live. I mean, I can go to God mode, I guess, and talk through it. But does that make sense? Instead of going, I need 50 ads, go, for me to get 50 ads, what needs to happen first? What are the 3 or 4 or 5 things that need to happen first? I'm going to get back into some of the AutoGPT stuff later on, but I just want to answer that first. What site do you recommend for comment scrape? Exportcommons.com, I think, is the one. Yeah, exportcommons.com. Uh, I paid for it to try it out. $11 for 3 days is definitely worth it. I would even pay 45. I probably wouldn't pay up 200, but I would pay either one of these so I don't have the limitations. Exportcommas.com, you paste in a URL and you can add multiple URLs, and then it'll scrape it and put it into a spreadsheet that you can either download or view. This one so far to me is one of the better ones, unless you want to go browse.ai and create your own scraper. This one is a quick and dirty one, and it works pretty well. Yeah, Jim, I mentioned that you can Google hack the search. Well, because this is being recorded, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but you can figure it out on your own if you think about two things. Volume, as in amount, and how you name things. And I'll stop there. I do not want to get in trouble. Anonymous asks, how to remain relevant and effective as a copywriter, or how to pivot. You're a solid copywriter, but you're wondering what's going to happen. I totally get it. Oh, emojis. It's a tough question to answer because you can go two ways, and I don't think there's a middle way. You can either become the copywriter who does not do anything with AI whatsoever, and you make that your thing. So that when people look for copywriters who don't use AI, like you're the one, and you do so and you give yourself a reason as to why that you can talk about. I would even, if I was inclined that way, I would write a manifesto as a copywriter and say, like, I'm taking a stand, a philosophical, moral stand that I will never use AI, and that becomes your thing. Or you go the other way, which is that you start to integrate AI into what you're doing and you become more effective by learning how to use the tools. I don't think, you can have ChatGPT write the manifesto for you. I don't think there's a middle ground. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just not sure there is, or there will be, because copywriters are going to use it and they're going to be more effective. And the reality is that copywriters together with ChatGPT will write better copy than copywriters who just don't, I think. There's always degrees of differences and there's always variation in that, but I don't think you can be in the middle of this. I could be wrong, but I just don't think you can. So a couple of questions came in on this. Best use case for AutoGPT, Super AGI, et cetera. And we kind of covered some of this already. But this one, my goal is to create and train my own private, narrowly focused large language models off the OpenAI database. I'm principally looking to in the realm of business, M&A strategy, all that stuff. And this person wants to filter and evaluate business opportunities, solve problems, et cetera. How would you go about doing this step by step? So this is a larger answer, but I'm going to answer it in a way that's probably the most helpful right now. Details can be gotten into, but there are other stuff I want to cover. I would focus on grabbing, at this point, Falcon is probably the best open source language model right now. So that's a good starting point. 7B is perfectly fine to use. 40B is a little bit better. And you fine tune it, or you use embeddings. Now, I don't want to get too into the technical weeds of this because I want to make it useful. But the reality is you take your data and you fine tune an open source language model on it. You do so on servers in the cloud, works fine. And the long and short is you fine tune that model on your data. And the reason I'm saying that is not only that it's good to do that for your own, so you have your own model, but also for privacy and security. So if you're using any kind of proprietary data of any kind or information of any kind, even though ChatGPT or OpenAI say that they have a private mode, I don't really trust it because, like, go to private mode and try to say something that's not allowed to be said, which means that they somewhere check your language anyway. And for them to check your language, they have to at least take a snapshot of it and understand what you're saying. So I don't think it's private. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's private. So if you have, especially if you're doing M&A deals and so on, you probably have private proprietary data that you don't want to put out there. And that's why I would say you want to do your own private internal large language model, either self-hosted or in the cloud. So training, you don't train it. You fine tune it or use embeddings to access it. If you fine tune, it just means that you go through a training program. It's not training, but it's like it, where you're feeding it your data and then it has reinforcement. Now, Hugging Face and other websites have tutorials on this. So this is like common knowledge as to how to do it. You can find good tutorials. I think even OpenAI has a tutorial on how to fine tune with their model, but the process is essentially the same. Yeah, start with Hugging Face as a website that has tutorials on this. And what I'll probably do when I post this video, I'll include some links to some other resources too that have tutorials. But you don't train it. You don't train the model, technically speaking. It feels like you are, but you're not training it. You're fine-tuning it. And here, AutoGPTs and Super AGI, essentially where things are heading is that this is what I've done with other companies. We have internal AutoGPTs or like Avatar GPT, Copy GPT. So individual models fine-tuned on the company's own information and data and their own marketing and sales materials, so that they prompt their own internal models to get new sales copy, new marketing copy, new whatever. That's where this is going. And that's going to become a lot easier to get done in the next 12 months. I wouldn't focus on building an AutoGPT yet, because there are going to be tools to make that easy for you in the next 2 months. So you don't have to do it yourself unless you really want to get into it. Instead, I would focus on what do you want them to do for you, and then selectively learn how to, or have someone fine tune a model for you. Just like you don't need some companies will have a single GPT, so to speak, for their company, and that'll work for them. But for a lot of companies, it's better if they have narrow trained, different large language models, like one for marketing GPT. I'm using GPT just to like hopefully make it make sense. A marketing GPT, a sales GPT, avatar GPT about your avatar, product GPT that's trained on your product, all the material that goes into it, what it is and how it works. And also these models trained on your competitors. So you can scrape your competitors' public information and all their marketing materials. And so you have your own model of your competitor that you can interact with to understand how they would sell their thing. Does that make sense to everyone? So use cases for AutoGPT and Super AGI is simply just to have a lot of volume done right now. You can do it for research. So one AutoGPT that I have essentially scrapes a bunch of different websites that I tell it to scrape for specific things. And then it analyzes the language it finds according to the language that I want it to find. Another one is taking transcripts of like sales calls and going through those transcripts and finding all the things people say in a sales call, pain points, problems, desires, needs, all of that stuff. So just start with thinking through what's a business and marketing use case that I need help with right now, and just understand that it can probably be done with language models. So make this shift from what can these tools do to what do I need to get done? That's a more beneficial question to ask for anything. Because it's easy to get stuck on the tools and be like, oh, these tools are amazing, and some of them are, but it's not about the tool. It's always about how it's used. So AutoGPTs and private large language models. If you don't want to get into the tech of it, which is it's not hard to do these things, but if you don't want to, totally get it. Just wait 3 months or so, because there are software and platforms being built right now where you can just upload your stuff, your whatever information you want to give it, and then it'll train one for you as a private large language model. They'll do it for you or with your direction. And AutoGPTs, like I said, there's a lot of hype around them, but I've made them work. And just think about a very long string of API and tool calls like webhooks that you can do via Zapier and Make.com or Pipedream. That's all an AutoGPT really is just a bunch of steps strung together. The key thing is that it can generate the steps on its own, and then you can take those steps and give ChatGPT another set of instruction. Like if I went to ChatGPT right now and asked, how do I make a burger? It'll give me like 6 steps. Then I'll take those 6 steps and I'll say, okay, now go buy the ingredients so I can do the 6 steps. All I'm doing is copy pasting what ChatGPT says and make it into another prompt. An AutoGPT is basically that. That's very simplified, but it's basically that. So don't become like mystified by it. It sounds simple to me anyway, and I think it is to everyone else too. Like, it's just a bunch of instructions, one after another, in a very long string of instructions. Make sense? Some questions. Robin, if you're writing promo emails, how do you feed ChatGPT a long sales letter? Yeah. Robin, that's exactly it. You're gonna hit that limit. You can probably use a plugin if you have a URL or a PDF of the sales page. There are plugins that can help you like consume them. So like if I go to plugins, like there are a bunch of PDF plugins, I think. Yeah, a bunch of them. That might help you to like feed it into it. But the reality is that if you use the chat interface on the web, you are going to always be limited by the length of what you can put in, which makes it hard to write a sales letter in like one go, which is why you have to break it up into pieces and repeat yourself a lot if you're going to do it via ChatGPT. Now, Claude's 100K can do it in one go. The prompt is what I said to Mandy. Just imagine you would like spend about a page or two writing out what you want a sales page to be, what offer for the avatar, and then how to like a template. Grab a template of a sales page and like break it down. You copy that instruction into Claude 100K right here, and you hit enter, and then it'll write it. It won't be good, as in like really good, the first try or the first time it does it, but you're looking to get the draft, and then you take the draft and you go back to ChatGPT and then interact with it here to refine it. Claude is a pretty decent writer, but ChatGPT and GPT-4 is a better writer. So if I was to do this without my API access and without like that, I would get the first full draft done here according to my specifications. I would create a brief of the sales page and give it examples of each section. Like for a headline, like I want a headline like this, and explain all that. If I was to write it into Google Doc, it would probably be a brief of 3 pages. Copy that, paste it here, it'll write the thing, and then you refine it with ChatGPT. That's the non-API version. Like I said, the reality is inside ChatGPT on the web, it's going to be limited by context. Hopefully that helps, Robin. William, is there a separate training somewhere about the Airtable ChatGPT? Well, so there are, you can find tutorials on this on YouTube. Like, I'm not trying to be dismissive. I'm just saying it's the knowledge, like the X-Files. The truth is out there. So how to do that is out there. And even Zapier has tutorials on how to do with their tool. I don't have a training on it. Maybe some point I do. That's specific to like marketing use cases, but there are tutorials on this on YouTube, how to use Airtable and like make.com or Pipedream. So it's not at all, and it's not even hard. Like, I'm not a developer, and yet I can get it done. Like, every IQ test I take, every single one, I score 81, which is basically, and whether you can use this word or not, but that's on the scale of like dumb to smart, that's like clinically retarded. So if I can do it, trust me, anyone can. Emily asks, good AI courses for copywriters. Well, aside from, I don't want to do any pitching. I got one, but I don't know many others. If anyone has a recommendation for Emily, recommend away. How would you use Bard to start your research? I would do the research the same way I do copywriting research. Ask questions about whoever my avatar is and explore the emotions of that avatar. Avoid hallucinations. Be very specific about what you're asking for. Be detailed and specific when you make the request. So Plutchik, I don't know how you pronounce his name. Maybe it's a her, I don't know. But you can do an emotion wheel of emotion analysis with any text you give it. So here's the full prompt, and I'll get into where the text is from. But it's, again, very simple. first I'm saying, because the prompt is long, I tell ChatGPT the sections of the prompt I'm giving it. I don't think you need this. I do it out of habit because it's easy to confuse a large language model, and so I'm trying to avoid confusion. Here I'm describing the role. I'm not asking it to be a copywriter or anything like that. I'm just describing the role and how ChatGPT should do its thing. And then context, and then the task. Now, Rachel, I see what you're saying. I've done it too, and it goes off the rails. So out of habit, I always do a role, because one day it might work fine without a role, but then they make updates to their model and filters, and then it doesn't do fine. But you do whatever you have arrived at. I'm just saying I always use a role, because over the past 3 years, I've seen it go off the rails one too many times, and I just don't have time to go back and fix it. But I'm asking it to do an analysis in positive and negative categories. And I see what I'm doing. I'm explaining what the emotions are, not just fear, apprehension, but also like explanation. And then here's the task. Very simple avatar description. You can be more descriptive than that. And important, here's like one way to avoid hallucinations. If there are categories that do not show up in the text, do not include them, and instead make a note. Because if I say, and analyze this text according to these categories, ChatGPT is very eager, and it'll do everything it can to give you an answer, including hallucinating. So it's important you have contingencies like these in there to avoid hallucination. And this text is just scraped reviews from Amazon, just raw scraped text. I took away like the name and so on. Like we don't need the name of the person or how many stars. It's just a straight up text. And paste it in here. Where is it? Is it this one? No, it's this one. This was a 3.5, and the output is kind of sparse, but it does do that. Here's GPT-4, and it's this same text. Note how it was the same text. So 3.5 is not as accurate as 4. Is one of the reasons I pay the $20 plus API calls, right? But then it tells me what it is. Rachel asks, does it maintain the role you give it? Up to a point. At some point, it'll forget, so to speak. Does that make sense to everyone? Like take review. It doesn't have to be reviews. It can be any language. It can be a transcript from a support call, sales call, a meeting with your customer, and you can analyze and get what these emotions are. Make sense? So from here, I can start creating ads for each emotion. And I just call back and say, write me an ad for fear and apprehension, and follow the ADA framework as an example, right? Does that make sense to everyone? Like there's so many more things you can do besides just write me an email. Leandro, that's more of a technical question. I don't know off the top of my head, but it should say on Hugging Face at the very least how much memory you need. Jim asks, we just finished copy for a new VSL. We have a professional actor preparing for the role. Are any tools for modeling the actor if we prompted with our audio? Yeah, heygen.com. These guys aren't paying me for this. Right now, they're the best video tool. But that'll probably change. Like what's happening with all these tools is that they're all in a race to produce better outputs. Right now, heygen.com is one of the better ones. So Jim, look into that, because they can create a model off of just like 5 minutes of video or something to that effect. And it's worth it. I use them, HeyGen. And like I said, they're one of the better ones right now. Greg asks, how do you get GPT-4 3.5 to process text longer than the allowable tokens to the API? It seems if you have to make multiple calls, it responds to each API call. But what if I want to respond to the whole text? Embeddings, LangChain. Greg, I don't know if that means anything to you, LangChain and using embeddings, but that's the way to go if you have longer like that. Or ask for the 32,000 token window. So I don't know where they're at with rolling that out. I have 32,000 token window with OpenAI. I thought they were rolling it out to people. So see if you can request it maybe, Greg. But if LangChain makes sense to you, do that. 32,000 token expensive. I define expensive, Brett. A couple of bucks for me. I don't know. Travis, who are you following or what are you reading to stay up to date on AI, GPT, large language models? What sites, newsletter, podcasts, YouTubers, gurus? I'll put together a list. Like there are people I have RSS feeds set up for papers on these things. So I always get those papers. I use Readwise for that, for example. But I can, Travis, when this goes live and I share it, the video, I'll have a list of like people you should follow. Another one. A couple more questions that came up before. My question is, which open source language model to use and train for very narrow applications such as these? Generate replies for a CPA to review before submitting, generate replies, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, Falcon 7B is probably good enough. 40B if you can swing it. And this is probably like for a lot of people, this is a tech thing. Don't worry so much about the tech about this. Just understand there are many, many open source language models. And they're all like, again, competing about, and new ones are coming out. And you know, it used to be like Llama was one of the better ones, and then Alpaca was another one. Mosaic is another one. But right now, the Falcon language model is one of the best ones for open source. I would start with that one. It came out like a week ago or something like that. So I would use that one as the basis for fine tuning, because as long as you feed it data on these topics like CPA information and data, and then to do this, provide reply, serve high quality, and so on, reduce runtime costs, and so on. Look into Falcon 7B and 40B as the basis that you then fine tune. Now, if this makes sense to you, great. But if it doesn't, don't worry about it. You can also use embeddings to interact with it and LangChain to interact with a model, which helps you save context or use context. But if that does not make sense to you, don't worry about it. I've been having good success working with the prompts with ChatGPT. I've been also playing with the AI image creation to be used for ads. However, I found that this is a bit hard to get into. Any resources? Yeah. What's the website? There's I'll circle back to this. There's a website that has a bunch of, or there's a spreadsheet that has a bunch of photo styles. Automatic is a good one. For another thing, but I use Midjourney and sometimes DALL-E too, but Midjourney via Discord, and I just find prompts that are very specific about what I'm looking for and the different styles of it. What I'll do is I'll include a link to some decent Midjourney tutorials, but there are many of them, like especially on YouTube. YouTube Midjourney prompts. Mr. Wolf has some good tutorials on this, for example. I think his name is Mr. Wolf. I can't remember. Matt Wolf? Yeah. The workflow is simply that I also in Midjourney, you can do a remix and so on of images. So at this point, I'll give it an image of taken from an ad, and I'll ask it essentially to make variations of that image. So if I have ads with a winning image, I'll take that winning image, upload to Midjourney, and have it create variations of it. Yes, Matt Wolf. Thanks, Josh. I thought his name was Matt Wolf. I think his handle is Mr. Wolf. Yeah, and the Outpaint feature with Adobe Photoshop. Like, here's what's funny. Like, there's been so many individual image tools made. You can at this point almost ignore them, aside from like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney, because Photoshop, and as everyone expected them to, are integrating a lot of these AI tools into their software. So Outpaint, I think, is called with Adobe Photoshop, and there are a bunch of other ones too. So like, you can choose to wait it out a little bit for a few weeks, because it's coming into all the software everywhere for everything. Microsoft Word, Office Suite, Google, all the Google stuff. Canva has some AI integration at this point too. Notion, like, it's just, for better or for worse, it's happening in everything. And it just makes it easier to use too. Now, do you want to see something crazy? Code interpreter. This is probably, this is the end of data analysts. I'm not being 100% serious, but it's an alpha. So you have to, if you don't have it now, you have to be at Plus user. I just want to show you what's possible, so you see what's possible. Even if you're a ChatGPT Plus user, you need to request access via waitlist, I believe, unless they've rolled it out. But I've had this for a few weeks, a couple of months. And like, get this, I exported a raw revenue report for product sales for a client. And I gave it these instructions: analyze the sheet, be specific, also privacy, change the product name to something generic. And then it does this on its own. And then the spreadsheet contains these things. Great. I can do this. Okay, good. Do that next and ignore column 1 because it doesn't matter. And then it does all the work in Python. And then here's what we can do. So if I don't know anything about data analysis, I can ask Code Interpreter to tell me what we should do. And so I'm playing dumb with it just to be like, what can you do? Here's what we can do. And then it does the analysis. All, like, whatever. I don't know Python, so I don't know what that means. But based on the analysis, here are the findings. The product that generated the most revenue is product 5. Product that had the most customers, product 1. And the product with the most orders is also product 1. And then it starts doing some kind of like analysis on this. This implies that even though product 1 has the most customers and orders, product 5 has managed to generate the most revenue. This could be because of XYZ. Let's further analyze the relationship between order amount and revenue. And then you start spitting out all these analysis and like suggestions of what to do. And I'm just going, yeah, do your thing. And then it does its thing and creates a correlation matrix showing the relationship between the order amounts, customers, orders, and revenue. And then based on the correlation coefficients, I'm cracking up because like I get it, but I also don't get it. Like, I couldn't do this on my own. Like, there's no way. And then it starts saying, like, and some of these are pretty obvious. Like, there's a strong positive correlation between the number of customers and the number of orders. Sure, I get that. It makes sense. This makes sense. Now, this, though, is where things start to get interesting. The correlation between order amount and revenue is very weak. This suggests that increase in the order amount does not necessarily lead to an increase in revenue. If you are a company and these were your products, one of the first things you will do is, well, how do we increase the order amount? Well, the code interpreter says, not that fast, because it might not be the thing that makes a difference. And then I said, all this data is from 90 days. Can you give me like strategies and suggestions, and then score it based on impact? Here's what you can do. This is to us in marketing and business, this is standard, right? Like, increase the number of customers, but then it evaluates and then impact score. And then increase the number of orders, evaluates it, impact. But then it comes out with this, optimize product pricing. Since there is a very weak correlation between order amount and revenue, consider optimizing your pricing strategy. The impact score is 9 out of 10. It's the highest score amongst these. I'm telling you, if you paid a human to do this, which you can, it would take him or her anything from a few hours to like a few days. This is done in seconds. Barb, this is the code interpreter, which will soon come to everyone in the Plus tier, but you can request access now. Like, do you guys see like the depth of analysis it can do on its own? And I don't even need to tell it. Like I'm playing dumb and like, tell me what I can do. So this is probably the best thing for me to do. Like I can do cross-selling, upselling, but it might not have as big of an impact as this. And then what else about the data can you analyze? You're an expert. Thank you for the compliment. Here are other analysis we can do. And like, so don't, like, if you don't understand what it's saying, like, don't worry, just understand the concept that it can analyze any data you give it. And even if you don't know what to ask for, you can ask ChatGPT to tell you what you should look for and ask for and what you're missing. And like, look, like you can do these things. Let's calculate. And then it does like whatever this Python code means. I got no clue, but it does the thing. And then like we did this, and then we're analyzing this. Let's identify these product next. Yes. What am I going to do? No. I'm going to say, yeah, do what you're suggesting because you sound pretty smart. Then get this, based on the following analysis, here are the findings. The product that generates the highest revenue per customer is product 488. So it just randomized the numbers and to add to like for privacy, right? And again, 488. And then highest customer to order ratio is 121. Given these findings, here are other things we can do. Target high value customers, encourage repeat purchases. So when I see this as a marketer, I go, great, here are the next 30 days for my email marketing campaigns that I'm going to do. I'm going to heavily promote so I can get repeat purchases of product 121. I'm going to do this too. Like this is fact, data, answers that helps inform your strategy as a marketer. So Jim and Leandro, I'll try to come back to questions, but they're in chat, so I might miss them. But so do you guys see, like, I'm not a data analyst, but then it's doing it for me. Like, see how this can inform your strategy? Can you do this? Like, can you turn this data into helpful graphs? Yeah, it can create graphics. And then it creates these graphs. And then the 4 plots above show these 10, like top 10 products for revenue, per order ratio. To follow these recommendations, you can do this. So it's not just crunching numbers for me, it's giving me suggestions for strategies to use. Is there anything else missing that I'm missing or not asking that I should know about? And then I gave it like a weird request. Is there a fractal relationship to any of the data? So the analyst so far, blah, blah, blah. Here are more ways we can explore. So if I had more data, if I had timestamp data, for example, if I had data with additional data on my customers, now these can be separate files. So I can just upload, like if I see this, I'm gonna go, okay, I'm gonna go find this data in my like email CRM, in my whatever platforms I'm using, because then it can start doing these things like temporal analysis, like predictive modeling, forecast future sales based on past trends and other factors. Again, if you did this with a human, they can do it. It would just take time and cost money. And then I say, okay, try predictive modeling for the top 10. So it requires these things, which I don't have. So I say, okay, well, can you generate the data required as an example so you can show me what's possible? Sure, I can make up the data to show you what's possible. And then it does. And then it does again. Like it just like, like, and this just goes on. I'm going to stop scrolling, but do you guys see that? Like, if you're a marketer, download the data from your email platform, your whatever it is, your ClickFunnels, your Kajabi, your like whatever it is you're using. You don't even need to organize it. You don't even need to like clean it. You just download it into spreadsheets or other formats. You upload those to the code interpreter, and then you ask ChatGPT, like, explain this to me, and like, what am I missing? How can I understand it? Give me suggestions on what to do. If you're a marketer who has yet to get into tech, you don't even have to get into it. You don't even need to get into understanding analysis and statistical analysis. Don't even worry about it. Here we are, and it can do it. Leandra asks, since you mentioned code, do you know any large language model that is fine-tuned to be a Python software developer? There may be, Leandro. I'm not sure. There probably is. I keep saying Hugging Face, but that's because they're the best resource, and that the community that's on there may know the answer to that question. You could probably start with Falcon and then fine-tune it for that. But I believe there are models, Python models already. There should be. Open source models. So there are, which ones? Some of these should be able to do that. I just can't remember which ones. And there are like, this is a snapshot. There are like 50 open source models at this point, like many. So like y'all, like see how crazy this is? So Travis, the code interpreter is not a ChatGPT plugin. It's a separate function. So if you're a Plus user, then there was, and there probably still is, a waitlist for the code interpreter. Just Google OpenAI code interpreter waitlist. Now, when you get on it, you can probably actually reach out to OpenAI support and request access to it. So code interpreter is a separate function. It's not a plugin, but there are plugins that can do similar things, just not as good. And I think if you just, so Occam's plugin can do a lot of that. What's the other one? Yeah, not these. Well, there are like 80 of these, right? So skim through, because there are some that can still do analysis like it, but code interpreter is probably the better one. If you guys need to create a template, you can have ChatGPT create a template. Here is where you insert text from a page. If someone wants me to turn a landing page or something else, it needs to be a page or pasted text. But if you have a page that you want me to turn into a template, like just put it in somewhere. But truly what you do is you give it this prompt. The text is then the text of like the page in this example. And then it'll create a template, break down the page into a template for you. So as an example, in this case, here's the breakdown that it produced in this prompt. And then here's just an example. Follow these rules and follow these rules for the text structure. So this is one way you can replicate any page, anywhere you see online. You see a page that you know is converting well, and you want to turn it into a template. Just use this prompt, paste in the text for each section of the page, if it's a long page, for example. ChatGPT will tell you the structure of the page or the text you gave it, and it'll look something like this. See these instructions? This is one output that I got when I used that template prompt. And let's say you're writing a page for, I don't know, digestive supplement. You give it that role, and then you must write according to all the rules. And so here are the first rules is just around language, like write 300 words, change the 300 to whatever you want it to be. Like you want 500 words, put 500 words. Write doing this, be detailed, be descriptive, use simple, do not be common, don't use cliches. And then here's the structure that you give it. And so I'll just do this now as an example, right? So I'm going to use 4 as a default, and it'll write me a message following this structure. Untangling the knots of discomfort. Right? So like, see a page you know works, you're trying to understand why it works as a copywriter or marketer, just give ChatGPT the text and it'll give it a breakdown like this. You combine the breakdown with this prompt. You give it, obviously here, like this, you give it the role and description that matters for what you're selling. If you're selling software, don't tell it you're a gut health expert, right? I just want to like make sure everyone understands. And then it'll write a section of that page following the structure. Like this is often how I do variants for testing. I'll take a control and I'll have ChatGPT analyze it step by step, piece by piece. So I end up with like instructions for each section. And then I'll have it rewrite those sections, which this is all different from what's on the page, like the control page. And to go through this will take me 4 or 5 minutes. Now I have all the copy for a variant for testing done. And then I'll take some of these descriptions, go into Midjourney, get some more images done, or I'll take images on the control page, upload to Midjourney, have Midjourney create variants of it. So I get new visuals that matches what I already got. Is this making sense to everyone? Because I can't see your faces, I don't know if you're sleeping or if you're like not getting it. But there are so many ways to slice and dice with ChatGPT. Like, so when I say there's no one single prompt that'll do it for you, like there are so many ways to get to the same outcome. So you don't need like, I need the 10 best prompts. You don't need the 10 best prompts. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, because you can have like, I could have if I was on an island with a laptop and all I was allowed to do was use like this prompt to write copy and these 2 prompts to write copy, it's all I need. I find examples of controls and good copy, and I just find I have ChatGPT tell me the structure and why it works. And then I ask it to write it for me according to the structure. These 2 in combination will produce any copy you need for anything. Emails, ads, pages, sales pages. I don't know, but like, see, all you need are these. You don't even need any other prompts. All right, I'm going to keep going a little bit more. I know we're well past time, but when I get excited about stuff, like I can't stop, you know? So this person said that since the March 23rd update, inconsistent poor quality. I don't know why you experienced that, because I haven't. I've only increased. I've seen better quality output. But if you do notice the same, try Playground instead. Use that for a while. Like honestly, sometimes day by day, whatever they do in OpenAI, who knows what they do every day. But sometimes if that happens to me, which doesn't happen often, but if it does, I use Playground or I'll use the compare tool or Poe and just like get stuff done. But I'll give it a day and then I'll come back. Like it's just, you know, Claude, try Poe. I don't know why it crashes for you, but Anthropic, if you add yourself to the wait list, that's anthropomorphic. That's all I can tell you. I wish I worked at these places. I could give all my friends access to everything, but I don't. Again, if this happens, just go to other tools and give it a day. Coolest thing you do today, code interpreter. Like, I don't know what to tell you, code interpreter. Here's the thing, it doesn't even need to be data. You can upload any file. You can convert video files to MP3s with code interpreter. It's not just for data analysis. It can do a ton of stuff. I don't know why they called it code interpreter, because it doesn't make any sense. It's like a MacGyver. They should just call it MacGyver because it can do anything. So you can upload files to it. You can upload PDFs. You can upload other files. You can upload things, and it can interact with it. And you can ask questions about the file you uploaded. So try to get access to it if you can. I wish I could give you all access. Jonathan, good to see you. Always good to have you, Jonathan. Do you know people using it to create a landing page? My preferred landing page tool is Unbounce. I'm sure at some point they'll have an AI builder, but the way they set up their testing and how they run variants is very useful. There's also another site that can create websites in like 60 seconds. And let me see if I can find the URL for it. Yeah, 10web.io. You describe what you want, and it makes the website, which means it can also do a landing page. Sean, no, the Google Doc has not been shared, and maybe I will when it becomes live. Anonymous asks if we can use ChatGPT to scrape the web pages and study those best control promos that we uploaded. It can write the best copy. Yes. It can replicate and imitate very good copy. The quickest way for you to get copy done is to find like a great email that converts, give it to ChatGPT as an example and say replicate this email, but this time write it for product ABC, the avatar is Bob, and you give it some detail as to the context, and then it'll imitate the copy. Now, there are better ways to get better output, but that's like a quick hack. How is a copywriter useful at that point? This is a very good question that I don't think anyone has an answer to. I don't have an answer to it. All I know is that the copywriters who do use it are able to produce very good copy with less work. And that way they can be more useful to their clients. Now, I do not encourage a copywriter to compete on speed. That's a quick way to lose. So instead, AI becomes your black box where you position yourself so that the perfect combo is you plus AI. You have something unique and approach and skill set that you combine with AI, and therefore you're a better copywriter. So don't compete on speed. Don't say I'm going to have AI do all the things. Instead, position yourself as a copywriter who uses AI to achieve better results. Hopefully that makes sense. What about the financial results, conversions you're getting from the copy you're generating? Yes. So Leandro is asking about the results and conversions from the copy generated by AI. Did I notice that it increased? Yes. Robot copy converts. And if I run a split test, it's like any other copywriter. If you don't run a split test, like you'll find the winner, and often robot copy wins. What this helps you do is not about producing, it can produce volume and you can test based on volume. But the biggest win by using ChatGPT and other tools for copywriter is that it can help you produce better variants for testing, because it can give you 10 emails and you go, well, only 2 of them are good as they are and only require a little bit of editing. So I'm going to take those 2, wrap them up, test them. So instead of testing 10 and 8 of them are crappy, you find the best out of the volume and use that. You need to use Peter, you need to use swear words in your copy. You're probably better off with an open source. I'm not sure how much ChatGPT allows you to swear. I don't use swear words, so I couldn't tell you. All right, this one is a fun flow. I'm going to go into ChatGPT. Is this one, I think? Yeah. So, my gosh, it's a long session. I started off, so this is basically how you can go from conflict, desires, and problems to like a landing page and emails with a series of prompts. I start off here, simple description. I ask for this. I ask for desires. But then I go, you know what? That's okay, but how can I make this better? I know. I should ask for desires that they're not aware of. So I'm asking you to tell me what are the 6, it could be 7, 4 desires, however many you want to ask for. But I'm asking, like, what are the desires that they are aware of? And what are the desires that they are not aware of, lurking under the hood? Desires they are aware of. I want to freeze time. I want to feel capable. I want to create something meaningful. And then it just goes into it, right? Desires they are not aware of. I'm seeking my own identity. Wow. Okay. You thought you're taking photos of your kids because of legacy, but in the midst of it all, you're actually also searching for your identity. That's pretty good. And a bunch of other ones. I'm trying to ease my own fear of them growing up. So these are the desires that people in the back of their mind, but they're not willing to give it voice or to put words to it. Now I'm doing it for problems. What problems are they aware of and not aware of? Problems they are aware of and what they're not aware of. I'm not fully present in the moment. I'm so focused on capturing the moment that I'm missing out on actually living it. I'm building up. You'll see, this will make sense in a second. I'm building up, gathering the depth of emotional expression and so on. And see what I did here? Here's the role, and then I'm going to give you these things, follow my instructions. Now here's the avatar description. Here's the primary aware desire, unaware desire, aware problem, unaware problem. Why am I doing this? Because the task is that I want you to express and describe the conflict between the primary desire and primary problem combined with the unaware primary desire and unaware primary problem. One of the best ways to write copy is to look for the conflict and express that conflict, because your product or offer resolves the conflict. And see what I'm doing? I'm asking questions because I want ChatGPT to be creative in the output. What are the obstacles? What frustrations? What are the struggles? What happens if this is unresolved? Make sense to everyone? And then it starts to go into it and describe. At the core of this conflict is a heart filled with love for his children and a mind filled with worry. Like, this text right here can easily be turned into copy for whatever, emails, ads. Like, one point I want to make, side note, don't start with the final output that you're looking for if you want to have really good copy. Go a few steps back and get the emotions available to you, and then this can be rewritten into headlines, subheadlines, bullets. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you can go straight to the end, but I think you'll get better copy if you go a couple of steps back. But here's where the problem compounds. So it's describing the whole conflict to me. If this goes unresolved, he stands to lose a lot. He will feel like he's failing at something that means so much to him. And that's a heavy burden to carry. Anyone in chat, does this make sense? Do you see like how powerful this can be for getting the groundwork done so you can turn this into copy? Because you can just have it rewrite it. Here's what I'm doing. Here's your task. Write an 800-word message using the context provided. You must apply the pastor framework. Pick any copywriting framework, any of the frameworks. And I'm just outlining how the framework works and what I want it to do for each step. Again, I'm pulling in the unaware and aware desires and problems. Can you sit still for a second, Katie? Mark pleaded. I'm not saying this is good final copy, but this is the kind of copy, this kind of raw text that can become really good copy. So it does. I notice how I didn't say, write me an 800-word landing page. The risk you run if you start asking for a landing page too soon or a Facebook ad too soon is that ChatGPT has a tendency to fall into tropes. And so it'll write like really shitty copy. So just because this right here in the hands of a capable copywriter can be edited into a landing page in like 5 minutes. Does it make sense? Then it does it. It follows it. Like, it gives me the whole scenario. Tells me the offer. Because I gave it, like up here, I gave it those instructions. Do you see? So if I had more description of what my offer is, I would add it here. Do you understand? Like, I'm doing this to illustrate a concept. The more description and detail you have, the better the outcome will be, right? Reread the text below. So I picked this part. This is the first part. This is the, I believe up here, right? Personal amplify, maybe the amplify part. Yeah, personal. Do this. And then this can become like a landing page or an ad opening line. And I'm still not happy with it because there's some tropes in here that I want to avoid. So I say, Rewrite, but use simpler language. Make them like headlines, but without the tropes, jargon, capitalization, or using questions. And I go, man, it's a lot of Katie's in here. So I say rewrite each item, but remove Katie. Bottle this moment. Freeze time for a second. I go, all right, well, rewrite the summarized text below. So it's still the same text as above. I'm just giving it different instructions because I'm looking for like a headline combo. Hold the laughter, freeze to play. Finger trembling over capture button, the moment slipped away. And I go, why did you rhyme? Like, what? And then I apologize. It was not intentional, but I'm trying to be evocative and poetic. Like, if ChatGPT ever gives you something that you don't like, ask, like, why did you give me that? Like, I go, why did you rhyme? Like, I didn't tell you to rhyme. Why did you rhyme? What are you doing? Oh, I'm sorry. I did this. Like, I don't know. I tried to be poetic. Okay, good. Now rewrite those into something that the avatar would say to a friend to be helpful. If you want to capture the childhood, you got to be quick. Before you know it, the moment's gone, replaced by nothing but the echo of laughter. Like, it's kind of cheesy, but this can easily be edited into a headline. That's not cheesy. Remember, it's not about the photo. It's about the memory, the feeling, the joy of that instant. The photo is just a bonus. Even if you're a mediocre copywriter, you look at this and you go, man, at least 2 or 3 of these can be edited quickly into a good headline subheadline combo. And I just keep going. Give me ideas of like specifically headline and subheadline combos. Breaking the speed of life. Chasing shadows. Blurry is the new sharp. Again, some of these are cheesy, but it's meant for you to go like, okay, good. I can use like 5 of these and just rewrite them a little bit. And then I just keep going, like, write me emails. Each email is meant to do this, that, the other thing. Here's the text. I'm just giving it the text that it produced above. And then it starts writing me emails. Do you see how the final like email and ad is the last thing I ask for? And then it just keeps going. Does this make sense to everyone? Like, you're following? Rachel asks, will this doc be in the membership site? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what to do with it yet. I just wanted to show you guys. Another question. Do you still do your own research for copy projects now, manually the old way, or do you solely rely on what ChatGPT provides? I still do both. And I use my own AutoGPT to do a lot of the just grunt work volume of gathering research. I do both. I think I'll always do both because I do, like, maybe it's just me, but I like finding things. Like, I like hunting for things. So I do both. JD, do you go into your framework? I think an approach for copy for ads, landing page, sales page, email, etc., somewhere else, or did you do that early on this call? I didn't do it early in this call. The only other place I do it is in a product called 10x Funnels that Copy Hackers sells, which I don't think you can buy anymore. So this is not a pitch, but I didn't cover it here on this call. Any tips on the prompts for a quiz funnel? Yeah, Jim, make ChatGPT play a game. So Jim asked, any tips on prompts for quiz funnels? I mean, like, yeah, where you ask questions and they give an answer. Do a combination of asking ChatGPT to play a game of like guessing the answer. And so you say like whatever the quiz is about, let's say it's about sleeping better. And you say like, I'm trying to create a quiz and there's going to be 5 questions that'll help me tell someone how to fall asleep better or sleep better. I want you to brainstorm with me what those 5 questions can be, but make it like a game where you're aiming to optimize for curiosity and you give yourself a score to how curiosity compelling your questions are, but you never give yourself a perfect score. That way, what ChatGPT will do is it'll play it like a game where it gives itself a score and it'll keep on coming up with interesting questions and answers over and over and over and over again, which will help you get the best kind of questions that are the most like curiosity driven. So hopefully, Jim, that makes sense. Tommy asks, I just got on here, so you may have answered this. Is it beneficial to have ChatGPT Plus along with Poe and like Magi. Yes, I pay, even though I use 9 out of 10, I use API calls. I still pay the $20 because they're plugins you don't access via API, for example, right? This code interpreter is not via API. So I am happily paying $20. I would probably pay 10,000, if not more, every month for that tool because of what it can do and the value that it can bring to whatever client work that I do. And I do also pay for Poe because I like having access to the 100K via here, even though I access this through API, but it's good to have like a second sandbox, if that makes sense, and like Claude Instant and Claude Plus, right? So I still do. Because totally, I'm in total, my bill with API calls every month is maybe $400, and the majority being API calls. But like $400, because the value I get out of the 400 is probably 10x or 100x or 50x. Like it's insane what I can get done for $400 a month. Oh, cracks me up. Done with that one. Leandro, what AutoGPT do you use to do research for you? I have my own. It started off as a make.com map and pipe dream flow where I tested out the concept of what API calls I had to make and what instructions and webhooks I give it to scrape and so on. And then I paid a developer to build me it's basically a Python scraper to do it for me because I have more control that way. Because if you use make.com and so on and so forth, sometimes those calls break. And so I'm just doing it to not run into the breakage. Boom. Okay, I think what else? Maybe, yeah, the next 12 months, 3 to 12 months. This is very short. I'm going to end with this. And if you got questions, let me know. But this, what I described, you can do now. I can do this now. I have tools that do this now, which either through custom coding that I paid a developer for, or via these tools, you can have a full campaign and full funnel copy made. And you start with one prompt input. Like for me, the simplest, like I can say, create a lead generation funnel for an ABC offer and for LMNOP avatar. And I hit enter on that instruction. And about an hour and a half later, I have, because I've specified it, I have 50 Facebook ads, 50 Google ads, 50 social media posts, 4 landing pages that are different because I want to test for from the start, along with a 14-day email sequence with all the emails written and done. This is not like science fiction. This is possible now and has been possible for a while. You can string that together with these tools. You can have it custom made once you know what the calls need to be. Because what it comes down to is that you're making different webhook and API calls to OpenAI with prompts. So if you do this in like make.com or Pipedream, you load those requests with the prompts, and then it fires off, and then it brings information in. So through a combination of Airtable and OpenAI as a basic, you can have this done. Now, I also have images done, so I tap into things like there's different stable diffusion tools and so on that generates the images for me. Now, I can have that done for any description of a funnel or campaign that I want. If I want a campaign of 100 ads and like 10 landing page, like, so you just decide what the final output is that you want, and then you can tweak the flow to give you that output. The copy is not flawless when you get it. And some of them I run through a prompt again on my own to tweak them. But like, ask yourself, do you want to spend, I don't know, a week writing all those things as a draft? Or do you want to have them drafted for you in like 2 hours, and you spend your time being the copy chief, the copy editor, the copy whatever, creative director, where you're editing and tweaking and fixing and just doing I can have a full funnel done, fully produced with images and copy. And the final step is just to like put it into a landing page platform. Why would I not do that? So when are you launching your research AutoGPT? Yeah. So the best way to make money with AI right now is to do the work with either for yourself to create or with clients. There are plenty of people selling whatever they sell, courses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Good for them. I don't care. It is what it is. I love what's happening. And so I have clients paying me to do these things, and I'm happy to do it, and I'll do that. Maybe at some point but creating a SaaS takes time and effort. And like, I'm not a developer, so I have to hire a team. And then, so it's not just like make a SaaS tomorrow. It just takes time. And here's also what I know. Everything I've described will soon exist as a SaaS form built by other companies. I believe larger email marketing platforms are working on this. So I can either spend a ton of money trying to launch a SaaS now within 3 months, but then in month 4, someone like HubSpot will go, here's our thing, and then they'll win. So do you see, like, it's, even though the opportunity is there, is it smart for me to invest the time and money to make it when a bigger player will have it done soon enough? And then what do I do? Do you see what I'm saying? So like, you have to weigh these opportunities, even though it's like, oh, you should just do it. No, it's not as easy as just do it. Like, because someone else would come along and do it bigger with a bigger audience, like HubSpot. And then like, what do? Just try to sell my rinky-dink SaaS? Like, Steve asked, do you think ChatGPT solely or any AI created content can take the SERPs in terms of SEO without actual link building, reach outs and whatnot? I think there's a window for that, Steve, right now, but I believe that Google will make the changes enough so that those links and reach outs and mentions will matter more. I think what they'll do to combat the flood of content is to have other signals make a bigger impact on your ranking. You have a window of about 3-4 months where you can still get by without all of that, but I think that window will close. Do you use a tool for building the page as well? Or do you take the content? I just take the content and put it into, I use Unbounce for landing pages, for example. It's one of my favorite tools. It's too wonky. I tried to have it auto-populated into tools. It's just too wonky and it never gets done right. And so I have to do it again myself anyway. Does your Python AutoGPT run locally? No, that one runs in the cloud. I do have a couple of running locally if I wanted to, but they're just not as capable because of it. Like I have a MacBook M2, and it can run it, but then it has to sit open for a long time. So I run them in the cloud. I hope that makes sense. Yep. That's all I got. Last thing, sorry. These are the 2 things happening in the future, next 3 to 12 months. The full funnel campaign production that I just described, and then fine-tuned private large language models, where you take like an open source model and you fine-tune it with your data. Boom. That's all I got, friends.